Selamat siang, selamat bergabung di Cek Podcast LPMPP. Bagi Anda yang baru pertama kali mendengarkan, kami ucapkan selamat datang di CPL, gudangnya berita, wawasan, dan edukasi. Sobat CPL, kali ini kami akan membahas topik yang sangat menarik, yaitu terkait dengan implementasi model riset-based learning di dalam kelas. Sobat CPL, berdasarkan pernyataan isi standar dan indikator pencapaian proses pembelajaran, pada bagian isi standar karakteristik proses pembelajaran itu harus bersifat interaktif, holistik, integratif, saintifik, kontekstual, tematik, efektif, kolaboratif, dan berpusat pada mahasiswa. Adapun indikator pembelajarannya adalah bahwa setiap mata kuliah harus menggunakan metode atau proses pembelajaran SCL yang bersifat interaktif, holistik, integratif, saintifik, kontekstual, tematik, efektif, kolaboratif sesuai dengan sifat dari mata kuliahnya. Nah, riset-based learning ini merupakan pembelajaran yang wajib dilaksanakan untuk mahasiswa S1, S2, maupun S3 sesuai dengan standar proses pembelajaran di perguruan tinggi. Alhamdulillah hari ini kita kedatangan tamu yang merupakan pakar di bidang kombinatorial education dan riset-based learning, Profesor David MSc PhD. Beliau adalah pakar di bidang kombinatorial education dan riset-based learning. Beliau juga sekarang sedang menjabat sebagai Dekan FMIPA Universitas Jember, dan beliau mendapat penghargaan yaitu Best 50 of Sinta Award. Dan di sini saya perkenalkan juga ya, ada rekan dari Prof. David yang bernama Dr. Swamitaman Venkataman. Beliau adalah dosen di Sastra University, Tamil Nadu, India. Beliau juga mendapatkan penghargaan Sastra Indo G20 Chair Professor in 2023 by Sastra Dimet University. Assalamualaikum, apa kabar, Prof?
Ya, kabar baik, Bu Raffi. Alhamdulillah, sahabat JPL. Assalamualaikum, selamat pagi semuanya. And then you can say good morning as well. Yeah.
Good morning to everyone. Thank you for the opportunity. I would like to thank everyone for providing me this opportunity. Thank you and good morning to everyone.
Oke, thank you Dr. Swaminathan. Oke, untuk menghemat waktu kita bisa langsung bincang-bincang nih ya dengan dua pembicara kita hari ini, yaitu Prof. David dan juga Dr. Swaminathan. Nah, mungkin saya langsung aja nih ya Prof ya, langsung ke pertanyaan yang pertama ya Prof.
Ya,
Nah, oke, karena riset-based learning ini sejatinya adalah yang memang harus kita implementasikan di dalam kelas sebagai seorang dosen. Nah, apa nih Prof yang dimaksud dengan model riset-based learning dalam konteks pembelajaran di perguruan tinggi?
Ya, baik Ibu Raffi dan teman-teman sahabat JPL, saya akan memulai secara ontologis yang dimaksud dengan riset-based learning. Riset-based learning sebenarnya singkatan dari Stanford Research RBL. RBL stand for Research-based learning. Dalam bahasa Indonesia kita katakan pembelajaran berbasis riset. Ini diinisiasi oleh Alan Jenskin. Alan Jenskin tahun 2012 menulis sebuah buku yang berjudul Integrating Research Activities into a Classroom, yaitu mengintegrasikan aktivitas penelitian ke dalam sebuah kelas pembelajaran. Maka saya katakan riset-based learning actually ya bisa dikatakan lebih pas kalau itu diadakan di perguruan tinggi. Karena kita di perguruan tinggi aktivitas riset menjadi bagian daripada tridharma pendidikan kita. Nah, riset-based learning itu di dalam kelas mencoba untuk mendorong mahasiswa kita untuk menggunakan pikirannya dia secara aktif yaitu yang kita sebut dengan mind on, dan juga menggunakan aspek psikomotoral mereka secara aktif yang disebut dengan hand on. So research based learning actually include mind on and hand on activities. Nah, apa bedanya research based learning dengan project based learning? Kalau kita pahami, research based learning sama-sama model, sama dengan PJBL, sama dengan discovery based learning, sama dengan inquiry based learning. Tetapi dalam research based learning sebisa mungkin satu, bahwa research activities dilakukan oleh dosen yang bersangkutan. Tidak membawa hasil-hasil riset orang lain yang dalam bentuk papers atau reading course, misalkan dibawa papernya orang lain, dibedah dalam satu kelas, bukan itu. Karena sebisa mungkin hasil riset daripada dosen tersebut dibawa ke dalam kelas. Nah, nanti akan saya ceritakan di mana hasil-hasil riset itu bersumber. Tentu saja kita sudah paham dari riset group. Nah, yang kedua, sebisa mungkin dalam research based learning, aktivitas yang dilakukan oleh mahasiswa itu potensially dia memberikan sebuah hasil yang novel, hasil yang baru. Tetapi kalau dalam PJBL itu tidak harus novel. Bisa mengulang-ulang apa yang ada, entah di YouTube, entah di sumber-sumber bacaan yang lain, kemudian disuruh kepada mahasiswanya untuk melakukan sebuah aktivitas dalam bentuk dan sintaks yang telah tersedia dalam PJBL. Nah, itu bedanya dengan apa istilahnya PJBL dan discovery based learning. Oleh karena itu, research based learning itu sangat baik untuk menginisiasi aktivitas riset di dalam classroom. Ya, saya kira itu Bu Raffi untuk sementara.
Baik, nah Prof, tadi kan ada disinggung sedikit terkait dengan penelitian dan juga kelompok riset begitu ya Prof ya. Nah, apakah dalam model research based learning ini harus selalu melalui penelitian begitu Prof?
Ya, betul. So, maybe I can talk in English right now.
Yes.
Such that my friend also can contribute and can tell us about the best practices in your university. In our campus, in University of Jember, we have 3 types of research groups, which is candidate and also modality to implement the research-based learning in the classroom. Research group in the department level, research group in the faculty level, and research group in the university level. So we have a research group with the Ibu Raffi also here, namely SIGAD, Combinatoric Graph Theory and Network Topology. In research group, we have a splitting topic of research. We have a lot of sub-topic of the research of interest. For example, in my case, in my research group, we have like anti-magic labeling, we have a coloring, we have metric dimension, we have resolving dimension metric or whatever. By these topics, we bring all those topics into a classroom. So actually, the topic in the classroom set up initially in the research group, not set up in the classroom by a lecturer. So we set all those topics in the research group. Whatever in the research group, then we collect which suitable topic that can be implemented in the classroom in the specific subject courses. By this kind of model, then we can integrate the research activities and also learning activities. So we doing research and learning also teaching in the same mode. Some lecturer sometimes teaching in different topic, researching in different topic, and then I say to them that you were an exhausted lecturer. Since you study a lot of topic, you study a lot of things, and then finally you cannot go into further, deeply understanding, then you do not have an open problem that you can solve to be potentially novel research in the future. Now, in research group, we have a student for thesis and dissertation or undergraduate thesis. And whatever the topic in the thesis, sometimes we bring into a classroom. And then students are encouraged to initially solve the potential initial solution. Of course, yes, in the classroom, they cannot finish all the solution. And then again, we bring this initial solution into a research group. So there is a triple helix collaboration or triple helix contribution between lecturer, research group, and the classroom. That's the principle of the research-based learning. So the superstructure, the existence of research group is needed if you want to implement the research-based learning in the classroom. Because this is the principle and the big difference between research-based learning and project-based learning. So maybe you can tell in your university what kind of situation the researcher or the lecturer bring the research activity into a classroom, Doctor. So please, yeah. Just don't
we do practice a lot of practices to bring the research into the classroom by the suitable candidate and encourage the others also. Some of the objectives or the way which we do are semester abroad program, where if a person or student is selected, he can go to any university of his interest, where he will be doing research with the collaborative professor, and that will be given for 1 semester. So this is one way we encourage students for research activity. The other way also we have like research credit. So students who opt research credit has to find a suitable field. He will be approaching the suitable faculty. He will be working in his area of research. He has to produce new results. So by this way, he will be given credit so that he will be able to get honors degree and so on. We have research centers, that is university level, where one center will be concentrating on one specific area. So the students, those who are interested, can approach any faculty of the center level, and he can continue his research in that center. So these are the things which we offer. And also in the project level, we encourage them to find or incorporate or to design at least basic level new concepts, so that he will be able to do his research in the further way. For PG's programs, almost all the programs will be having project as a mandatory concept. and every student has to do individually his project, and he has to come out with some new idea, unless the project will not be completed. So in this way, all PG students are encouraged to definitely do some sort of research. And for UG, we tell them in the class, and we teach them in the class what is the research of any specific faculty, what he is doing. And the students are encouraged to do some activities, research activities under the faculty of his interest. So it is not confined, and he is having a large variety of topics, and so he can select the topic of interest of any student. So these are the basically offering techniques we are practicing in our university.
Maybe Ibu Rafi, can I continue also? I just asked him about what UG and PG student. UG mean undergraduate student.
Oh, undergraduate student.
PG mean postgraduate.
Postgraduate.
Student.
Okay.
So do the UG student compulsory write thesis in your university?
They are asked to do in groups.
Group?
Okay.
In group.
Will be doing in group.
So maybe this one the different one. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
But our Ministry of Education already state in their new policy that for undergraduate, even for PG as well, it is not compulsory to finish their thesis or their study in writing a thesis. So it would be thesis, it could be project, or any other type of project. But we
Report.
do not report, but we do not implement yet. But they already have given some new rule for this one. At the moment, in our university, UG student should write individual thesis.
Yes.
And then even postgraduate student should write individual thesis. Yeah. In abroad, we do not call dissertation or whatever. We just call thesis. Yeah. Thesis is just like whatever in here. Yeah. So the nice thing of this, actually, if we still maintain this was mandatory for writing a thesis or writing a PhD document, then all the lecturer have a playground, also have a very good playground for doing research, and finally we can get the publication in the top tier journal or whatever. So, but in the other hand, the research-based learning, the activities of research are not only with undergraduate student under a supervision process, or with PG student with a supervision process, but also in the classroom. We implement research-based learning. We do research in the research group. We do research also in the classroom.
In the classroom.
Especially for fundamental science, like in mathematics, we just need a scratch paper to do a research. So I believe it is very potential to ask students, for example, in labeling case. If we thinking alone, maybe it is hard to find out. But if we have 40 students and then we give them a concept, please find this one, I believe student will be able to find that. So if you implement this one in the classroom, it is a new concept, then this is a research-based learning. So after that, bawa hasil-hasil daripada kelas ke dalam situasi di aktivitas research group, maka itulah sejatinya yang dimaksud dengan research based learning.
Best
So
learning.
we are talking about different thing. We are talking about research activities that you told me about UG, PG, and everything. And we are talking also about learning process in the classroom. So these activities, research activity, brought into a classroom, then we call them research-based learning. So RBR. So we have a lot of publication, even in top-tier journal, in Q1 journal, about RBR. So this is education side. Okay. So I give it back to Ibu Rafi. Silakan.
Dr. Swaminathan, yeah. How many students are there in one group? You say make a group,
Yeah,
in undergraduate.
That will be maximum 5.
Oh,
And each and everyone must contribute separately for the entire work. So their part of contribution will be significantly monitored, and it will be required
Five student for
Five
one
student.
supervisor. Maybe.
for one supervisor.
Oh,
Ini
one
beda.
supervisor.
Satu bimbingan,
Yeah,
satu
beda.
ya. But here could be more. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, just one supervisor.
For 5 students. So, but one supervisor may guide many groups.
Okay. In one group, yeah.
In one group, there will be 5 students.
How many supervisor student have? For one student,
For one student, only one supervisor.
only one, no co-supervisor.
No co-supervisor.
No
No,
co-supervisor.
I'm talking about project level.
A project level, okay, undergraduate, okay.
Undergraduate project
Yes.
level. Similarly, in case of post-graduation, one student, one faculty, one student will be attached to one guide.
One guy.
But the faculty may guide many number of students for different topics. So topics must be definitely different. Their works and the output also must be entirely different from each and every student.
Oh,
That
yeah.
has to be taken care of by the guides. That is the faculty member of the university. This is how we work. Since each and everyone, in case of undergraduation as well as in case of post-graduation, will be separately taken care. They have to have their own contribution. For undergraduation level, the concept may be slightly easier, whereas in the post-graduation level, they must have almost research level concept they have to deal with.
So the student must present their project.
Yeah.
Then,
Yes.
okay.
So actually, this is a bit different with our system. Yeah. May I talk in Indonesia first? Kalau di Indonesia, semua mahasiswa S1 wajib skripsi.
Yeah.
Dan semua mahasiswa S2 wajib melakukan tesis. Sementara ini, semua mahasiswa S3 wajib disertasi. Tapi dengan aturan yang baru, kita tidak lagi diwajibkan. Namun demikian, S3 di luar negeri itu wajib tesis.
Oh, S3.
Yeah. So is it compulsory for doctoral program writing a thesis?
Compulsory.
Compulsory.
Oh,
Ini adalah
compulsory.
wajib. Ini bedanya. Nah, mungkin Pak Menteri tidak banyak memahami ini yang terjadi karena I was graduated in University of Manchester, UK. And also I was graduated in Federation University in Australia.
Okay.
I never found that doctoral program not necessary to write a thesis. I never found that. Even tougher, they demand they should have at least 3 or 4 publications in top tier journal. But in Indonesia, now it is not ruled again in the Ministry of Education rule. So it depends on the university. But I believe our university take some rule that it is compulsory for PhD student to write a thesis. But master degree and undergraduate degree, no need to write a thesis. So actually, it is sometimes we have to tough, sometimes we have to lose. Now our rule is a little bit too loose because no need to write a thesis for all level of graduation. So that's why it is not good actually. Yeah, because thesis, especially for doctoral program, for having a good excellency, for having a top rank of the university, it is important because a publication and citation contribute very significant impact into the higher education. Ya, itu Ibu Raffi ya. Jadi sedikit agak rancu memang. Nah, kalau kita tidak menerapkan research atau tesis, maka research based learning menjadi less benefit. Tidak terlalu banyak manfaatnya. Tapi kalau ini tetap, ya dalam peraturan itu memang tidak diwajibkan tidak harus tesis, tapi tidak diwajibkan juga tesis, tergantung kepada universitas. Untuk menafsirkan. Namun saya tidak tahu, saya yakin LP3M juga sudah mendevelop buku pedoman akademik itu. Saya mendengar Universitas Jember tetap mengambil langkah untuk S3 tetap harus disertasi dan publish dalam sebuah Scopus. Begitu Ibu Raffi. Nah itu pasti akan ada gunanya research based learning, karena untuk S3 level, S2 level, kalau kita terus hanya mengajar, maka rasa-rasanya ya terlalu banyak kita spend a time to teach all the time, not to do a research. For PG student, actually it's not suitable. Yeah, for right now, activities which is suitable is research-based learning activities. Begitu, ya, saya kembalikan lagi.
Baik, terima kasih penjelasannya Dr. Swaminathan. Kemudian pertanyaan selanjutnya nih Prof. Bagaimana dosen merencanakan dan melaksanakan pembelajaran berbasis RBL di dalam kurikulum mereka? Seperti itu.
Ya baik. Jadi memang ini dulu kita telah mencoba untuk mendevelop pedoman akademik yang memasukkan di dalamnya implementasi RBL dengan kebutuhan bagaimana supaya dosen mengajar, meneliti, dan mengabdikan ilmu mereka, dan dia itu semuanya inline dalam satu kesatuan tridharma. Sehingga perencanaan itu sudah menjadi aktivitas keseharian dia. Tidak hanya langsung pada saat besok mengajar baru merencanakan menulis RPS dan seterusnya. Sehingga rencana terintegrasi dengan aktivitas kegiatan di dalam research group. Contohnya dalam research group sekarang misalkan apa yang trending, apa yang menjadi tuntutan dia karena dia mendapatkan grant, entah itu internal maupun nasional, internasional, maka otomatis kajian yang spesifik perlu dia sudah set up untuk perkuliahannya itu. Sehingga perkuliahan itu kebutuhannya untuk kebutuhan yang ada di dalam riset group. Saya kira Bu Raffi juga dengan kami dalam satu tim, saya sekarang lagi tuning dengan machine learning, artificial intelligence. Di setiap pembelajaran saya mencoba integrating artificial intelligence into a classroom. Sehingga perencanaan sudah basisnya dari sana. Ya otomatis begitu ada rencana, ya sama dengan situasi dan perangkat-perangkat pembelajaran yang harus menjadi media dosen untuk perangkat dosen untuk membawa ke dalam classroom, ya tentu saja ditulislah dalam sebuah RPS, ya semester plan, kemudian ditulislah dalam sebuah bentuk LKM-nya seperti apa, Kemudian termasuk instrumen-instrumen penilaiannya.
Penilaiannya.
Namun demikian, karena research based learning itu biasanya dia memakai structural assignment. Jadi tugas yang terstruktur, bukan yang tidak terstruktur. Nah, oleh karena itu biasanya tidak diperlukan dalam bentuk penilaian tes maupun dalam bentuk yang istilahnya penilaian yang tidak menunjukkan performansi yang lengkap. Sehingga begitu dia menulis sebuah report, maka penilaiannya itu adalah continual dengan menggunakan authentic assessment, sehingga tidak perlu lagi waktu-waktu yang sudah seperti yang ditentukan, misalkan ada ujian tengah semester, ada ujian akhir semester, itu sudah tidak diperlukan, sehingga rencana itu termasuk sudah bagaimana dia melakukan continual and progression authentic assessment in the classroom. Because when they implement the research-based learning, they plan based on the research group activities. They should write semester student plan, semester teaching plan, and also student worksheet, and also the authentic assessment. So remember, if we give them an assignment, it should be structural assignment. So if it is structural assignment, then the progression or the continual assessment would be every week or every month, and the task given to a student cannot be solved in shortened time. It should be solved in the little bit longer period. So the students are given something insight, in deeper understanding about a certain topic. So we do not need to give them all the things that we have. Yeah, we give some keyword to them, such that they can use this keyword to search by using Internet of Things. Especially right now we have like ChatGPT, for example. By using ChatGPT of 4 version, and student can find anything through ChatGPT. There are a lot of features, a lot of plugin there, and then they can chat, they can communicate with ChatGPT. So even ChatGPT can replace the existence of lecturer if the lecturer only inform a definition and an example to the student, because the student can explore by themselves. But if we challenge them by having a research activity, even ChatGPT cannot solve this problem. So only human being can solve, because human being have a stage of thinking level, like analyzing thinking skill, and also evaluating thinking skill, creative thinking skill, even metacognition. So this is the human being, brain can solve any other complex problem. So that's especially in combinatory, if the people ask, what is your methodology to solve something? And then I can say, thinking is our methodology. Yeah, something thinking is not procedural, even faster than a very fast and quick computer machine. Yeah, but computer cannot be asked to run a programming. If we give them, sometimes they can run the program, but it takes time. Sometimes 1 week, 2 weeks, but people can solve this problem within 1 hour if we are inspired by something good idea. Just like in labeling, if we ask a computer, then computer cannot solve it. But using human being, then we can solve. Finally we got it, and then surprise, we got it. Yeah. So this is the human being, I believe, still faster, still better, comparing with the existence and advanced artificial technology and even machine learning. So I believe we still believe that human being can solve anything, not computer. Computer can solve something because we ask them to do so. Yeah. Okay. So I believe still benefit to give more emphasize their knowledge such that the student to be autonomous learner. If they are autonomous learner, then they can find them by themselves.
Yeah.
But if we are motivated to give them all that I have, and then finally they are getting bored all the time. Yeah. And finally they elected to join our class. Yeah.
Iya, oke. Nah itu berarti sebenarnya riset based learning ini ternyata bisa diintegrasikan dengan teknologi seperti yang
Iya.
disampaikan oleh Prof. David tadi ya, menggunakan chat GPT. Nah, cuman tidak akan pernah bisa menggantikan peran kita sebagai dosen di dalam kelas, begitu ya, Prof ya. Nah, lalu Prof, kira-kira Prof, tadi kan terkait dengan riset based learning ini pastinya mahasiswa itu dituntut untuk bisa menampilkan yang baru, begitu ya, Prof ya.
Yeah.
Nah, menampilkan kebaruan itu kira-kira apakah apa mungkin ya bisa sesuai dengan timeline dalam pertemuan yang 16 pertemuan itu, atau bagaimana cara kita memberikan topik ke mahasiswa sehingga bisa sesuai dengan timeline itu, Prof?
Baik. Ya. Yeah, this is the problem. She asked me about how a student can get a novelty in the classroom. That's the problem. The novelty does not mean very complex one.
Yeah.
Yeah. From the simplest one, then we can consider it is novel. Just I talked with him from yesterday. We are talking about DNA engineering according to the hypergraph concept. Of course, even 3 or 5 scientists sitting together, maybe one man cannot solve this problem.
Yeah.
But if we have something very simple, for example, if we give to a student an some example, if we have a circle with a certain radius, can you find the area of the circle? If we have a triangle, the base is 5 centimeter, the height is 17 centimeter. Find out the area. So even we talk this one with some modification of the problem, if the type of this problem something like that, then it is not a problem in mathematics actually, because it is just procedural. Yeah. Procedural. Because maybe computer, ChatGPT, MATLAB can solve this problem.
Can solve.
Yeah. So there are a lot of lecturers trapped on this kind of example. They think that the problem should be complex. No, the problem can be very simple, but it is very creative. For example, I have a circle, but not in very stream circles. A circle, but we have like a flower. Flower actually is not a circle because the circle side is not it's not curved enough. Yeah. Then if we have a flower, similar, look like a circle, and we have the real circle, and then we ask to a student without any information about radius, we have any information about the diameter, and ask student which area is bigger. No information about the diameter, no information about radius. So actually, if they can answer the problem with the specific reason, that's actually novel. If the logical reasoning is different with the other one, that's novel. Understand? Yeah. So novel, it does not mean complex. Novel,
yang dibayangkan itu yang besar gitu, Prof.
Ya, yang dibayangkan yang besar.
Iya, yang baru sekali.
So, yes. Look at this. This is something. But it is not solvable by a certain procedure. Like labeling. I have this cycle, please, I have a candidate of label and do a permutation to assign the label such that the H weight can have a specific properties. It is very simple. Yeah, it is very simple. But people try, I don't find it. I found it finally. Yeah. And then we can extend. There is a pattern in that side. Yes, I have a pattern. And then we try to generalize. So the question of the simplest one, if I have a problem, do the solution exist? Apakah solusinya itu ada? Okay, and then people say, yes, I can find the solution. And then the next question, does the solution unique? Apakah solusi itu adalah satu-satunya?
Satu-satunya.
That's the different question. And then, yes, it is. And then we should ask again, can we generalize? Apakah kita mampu?
Iya, mengeneralisasi tadi.
And then, yes, we can generalize. And then, can you prove it in the logical manner? Dalam cara yang logik. If those them there, then I say it is no valid.
Oh.
It is no valid. Even from the simple one. Even from the simple one. Yeah,
Paham, Prof.
Even from the simple one. But people here thinking novelty is something very something
new.
very new, something. But wow, we don't want to create the nuclear bomb. Why you are talking about something very big? Yeah. You are not needing a war, that war right now. Why talking about something very huge? Thinking about something. But what happened in the classroom? All lecturer teaching them based on the textbook.
Yeah.
Whatever in textbook they give it to a student. Yes, it's of course right now by using artificial intelligence, a conversational user interface by using chatbot, with ChatGPT on everything, they can solve it. Yeah. So I believe it is. So that's why I'm encouraging to students to get the ChatGPT as their secretary. Okay. Yeah, I encourage them. I don't ban them to do, because ChatGPT cannot be banned. They can use it everywhere. Even we ban them, then they can use it here without our notification, of course. What do you think, brother? Yeah. So you allow student using ChatGPT as well?
Oh.
Yeah.
They do use ChatGPT. And I would like to add a small point here by Professor Dafiq. He's telling that very small concepts also are innovative. Yes, it is sure. And if we talk about the applications of mathematical concepts, the application will be starting from the basic concept of any particular area or field. And also, many basic innovations will be contributing a lot to the applications also. So those who are applying mathematical concepts will be definitely acknowledging this, because even a basic concept of mathematics will be much useful to them when they are applying for their field. So in that way also, these innovations, as Professor Dafiq was telling, are very, very important, and they play a major role in two ways. One, for building their complex innovations later, and also this could be applied for some engineering application, engineering or scientific areas, by which the problem they are facing could be very easily solved. So these according to Professor Dafiq, he may be calling it as basic or small or whatever it is, but they are very, very important for 2 cases, as I told.
Hmm.
So we are having such experience, simple concepts in the Lie algebra, where we were able to solve some complicated problems in wireless network. So they it seems to be simple, and they were in fact devised long back, some 2 decades ago. They were devised. They were not used as such directly in any science and engineering applications. So we have simply taken that, and when we are talking, I mean, when we are working with wireless sensors, this has given a big role, and we were able to solve a complex problem beautifully with these basic concepts. So we'll have to think of when these basic ideas are much useful, the complex ideas will be more useful. But as Professor Abdul told, these things can be done only with the help of natural intelligence, not with artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
ChatGPT can find the use of it's important thing.
Ya.
Ya, silakan Ibu Rafi, masih ada.
Oke, nah Prof, kira-kira nih apa ada tantangan yang paling utama nih yang bisa dihadapi oleh dosen atau biasanya dihadapi oleh dosen dalam menerapkan model RBL? Nah, kira-kira bagaimana cara mengatasinya? Mungkin kan Prof Davik sudah pengalaman nih menerapkan RBL di dalam kelas. Tantangannya kira-kira seperti apa? Lalu bagaimana cara Prof Davik mengatasinya?
Ya, baik. Jadi tantangan utama bagi dosen untuk menerapkan RBL karena dia harus memulai sintaksisnya itu kan ada 6. Satu adalah posing problem. Nah, problemnya ini harus betul-betul problematik berbasis kepada research group problem. Nah, itu yang kadangkala tidak semua dosen yang masuk dalam research group dia mampu mendevelop open problem. Nah, kalau dia mampu mendevelop open problem dalam research groupnya, maka dengan mudah dia akan membawa open problem ke dalam kelas. Dan yang kedua, tadi tidak semua dosen memandang bahwa dari sesuatu yang simple tapi kompleks,
nah betul,
istilah saya simple tapi problematik. Tapi belum tentu yang kompleks itu problematik. Ya sama dengan menyelesaikan sebuah persamaan linear, persamaan nonlinear yang multivariabel itu kan banyak, kan kompleks, tapi dia tidak problematik karena kita sudah memiliki cara yang spesifik untuk menyelesaikan. Tapi sesuatu yang sangat mudah tapi dia problematik. Nah, untuk memilih sesuatu yang simple tapi problematik ke dalam kelas ini memang butuh pengalaman dari seorang dosen sedemikian hingga dia mampu memilah dan memilih. Sebenarnya mudah kalau saya bisa memahami. Dosen memiliki sesuatu aktivitas riset, katakanlah dia mendapatkan hibah, mendapatkan ini dan mendapatkan itu. Coba renungkan sesuatu yang problematik dalam riset itu, kemudian dibawa ke dalam sebuah kelas. Makanya dalam melakukan riset harus inline juga dengan apa yang diajarkannya.
Betul.
Kadang-kala kan dia tidak inline sehingga dia tidak mampu membawa objek-objek riset question yang ada di dalam grant dia ke dalam classroom karena tidak integratif. Nah, kalau kami tidak seperti itu. Karena di dalam research group kami yang dibicarakan dalam research group ya yang akan saya ajarkan dalam classroom. Itu ya banyak-banyak memang saya berada di S2 dan S3. Kalau S1 memang banyak-banyak masih dalam tataran bisa kalau di kami ada aplikasi Graph. Kalau misalkan mata kuliah pendahuluan seperti matematika diskrit dan seterusnya mungkin belum bisa sehingga tidak semua mata kuliah itu bisa kita bawa dalam konteks research based learning ya karena kalau semuanya research based learning mungkin mahasiswa masih belum begitu siap. Tapi yang paling utama research based learning tidak harus fully sintaksis itu diterapkan, tapi bagaimana mengajarkan kepada mereka untuk exploring sesuatu yang novel. Kemudian membahas sesuatu yang yang problematik, bukan yang prosedural. Nah, makanya ini yang paling sulit untuk dipahami oleh dosen. Kemudian yang terakhir, aktivitas di dalam classroom harus terintegrasi dengan riset grupnya. Makanya kami, mungkin Bu Raffi sering melihat ada anak-anak di istilahnya riset group kami, dia dari mata kuliah, kemudian berinteraksi dengan teman-temannya. Nah, atmosfer seperti itu bagi dosen tidak semuanya bisa mewujudkannya. Nah, ini kan sebenarnya bagian daripada riset group management. Bagaimana memanage riset group. Sehingga di dalam riset group itu ada proses mentoring antara senior dengan mahasiswa yang dibimbing oleh dosennya, sehingga dia tidak harus belajar langsung kepada dosennya, tapi belajar sesama mahasiswanya, ada interaksi di situ.
Ada interaksi.
Nah, ini yang dimaksud dengan filosofi putihnya beras itu bukan karena hanya alunya, tapi putihnya beras karena interaksi sesama beras pada saat dimotivasi dengan seorang dosennya. Maka ini harus diberikan juga sebuah istilahnya penekanan. Dan tidak semua dosen menjadi best practice, menjadi motivator yang baik untuk menciptakan atmosfer
itu tadi ya, Prof.
Nah, ini challenge-nya sebenarnya. Makanya saya katakan untuk menerapkan riset based learning sebenarnya cukup holistik, dimulai dari bagaimana memanage atau melakukan sebuah pengembangan riset group yang lebih baik. Makanya riset group ini sebenarnya sudah potensial dan ini sudah luar biasa. Universitas mengembangkan ini dan saya sangat appreciate sekali. Tapi bagaimana dosen mengembangkan riset groupnya sampai menciptakan atmosfer seperti yang kita diskusikan tadi dan mampu membawa riset based learning ke dalam pembelajaran. Begitu, Ibu Raffi.
Baik, wah itu sangat komplit sekali ya Prof ya jawabannya tadi yang disampaikan oleh Prof Davik. Dan saya pribadi mendapatkan pandangan yang baru gitu ya terkait bahwa kita sebenarnya tidak perlu mencari yang terlalu besar gitu ya. Ada hal-hal kecil yang bisa kita kembangkan di dalam kelas di mana bisa memantik mahasiswa gitu ya untuk memunculkan ide-ide barunya seperti apa. Nah, Prof, apakah setiap disiplin ilmu itu bisa diterapkan nih model LBL di setiap disiplin ilmu atau hanya ada beberapa disiplin ilmu tertentu saja nih yang cocok nih buat model LBL atau bisa semua seperti itu, Prof?
Yes, it is. It is possible for subject courses, not only for mathematics, for science, for engineering, for everything. Yeah, I have SIGAN in floor 6 in what SIDAS building. There are a lot of research group there. On the 7th floor there are robotic research group.
Robotic.
There are also from agriculture research group, and they bring all their students to do a research, but these students actually join a specific classroom. Yeah. So lecturer Prof Bambang Sugiarto, also Pak Tri, Prof Tri, ya semuanya banyak dia membawa mahasiswanya, terutama mahasiswa S2 dan mahasiswa S3 ke dalam lab mereka dan mereka melakukan sebuah aktivitas riset bersamaan dengan riset-riset yang dikembangkan oleh para dosennya. So, kita memang harus memiliki wawasan bahwa research based learning itu ya tidak hanya di S1 yang memungkinkan dibayangkan S1 kan masih awal. Tapi S2, S3 kalau bisa sudah tidak ada lagi sebuah pembelajaran yang ada di dalam kelas, itu sudah sebenarnya menyalahi pikiran mereka yang sebenarnya dalam level andragogi. Mereka adalah mature student, ya mereka adalah autonomous learner sebenarnya. Hanya kadang kita ingin mereka di dalam kelas, belajar di dalam kelas. Actually for PG student, the real classroom is not in the classroom. The real classroom in the society. They can learn with scientific forum, they can learn with other supervisor, with associate supervisor from other faculty. Am I right? Yeah. So that's that we have done in the University Abra. Yeah. So they are not teaching, they are not learning in the class, but in here, all the master degree programs still having a lot of classes. What do you have in what your university?
Yeah, in most of the cases, our PG programs will be like this. First 1 year, that is 2 semesters, they will be having classrooms along with their labs,
Oh, just 2
corresponding,
semester.
corresponding laboratories. Third semester, number of subjects will be brought down. They will be doing like what we call it as semi-project.
Semi-project.
Yeah, they will be trained to do their project in the last semester. And in most of the cases, most of the programs, the last semester will be only the project. They will be doing all their works
For master.
degree.
For PhD,
For PhD,
don't have any course.
no, will be there. According to our university, we will be having 4 courseworks.
Oh, for.
Yeah, that need not depend on classwork. That is
Not compulsory for everyone. It
Not-
is optional. Yeah.
no 4 courseworks they have to do, but attending the classes are not compulsory. They can do on their own.
Yes.
Yeah.
So courseworks will be mostly done by the research scholars on their own, except 1 or 2 courseworks.
Yes.
They will prepare themselves, and they'll have to approach if they need. As the professor was telling, they are self-learners by that time.
Yeah.
They will be learning on their own, and if for any discussion, they will be contacting their
Supervisor.
supervisor or any expert in that area. They will have to face the coursework on their own, and after coursework, they have to go with their research work.
Ya. Jadi itu yang dimaksud dengan ada istilah in abroad we have for especially for PG student, they can choose PhD by master by coursework or master by research. In Australia, if they are doing master by research, even master, they don't need to join a class. Tidak perlu join ke dalam sebuah kelas.
Kelas.
But if they are master by coursework, yes, they should attend a class.
Ya, harus datang di
At the
kelas.
end of the study, they don't need to write a thesis.
Ya.
Tidak perlu menulis thesis.
Thesis.
Cuma project.
Project aja.
But for master by research, they should write a thesis. And then if they have finished their study, they got a degree, Master
Master
of
by-
Art. Yeah.
Oh, Master of Art.
Ya, bukan Master of Science. Master of Science actually sometimes they are mixed or sometimes they are originally only Master by coursework. But for PhD student, yes, you're right. In Australia and UK, they don't need to attend to
The
join
class.
the class.
Oh.
Even there are coursework, but it is optional. But they should pass this. But the way how to explore the knowledge in regard with this coursework, it depends on them because they can. They are already self-learner. They can explore by themselves and using all things that they have. And then if they finish minimum level, and then they already pass this one. And now finally they should join a research activity during their study.
And even this self-learning also will be evaluated
Yeah.
by
Ah,
a group of professors.
Professor.
But the different thing, brother, because I always required to be one of the member of the panel examiner in India.
Yeah.
That's maybe our system is a little bit far
Okay.
from this thing standard. Yeah. In India, they have external examiner.
Oh, external examiner. Oh,
from
ha.
other country.
Another country.
From other
Oh.
for PhD student.
Yeah.
Yeah, for PhD
Ah.
student. Ini yang tidak ada di Indonesia.
Hmm.
But right now, Minister of Education in the sosialisasi kemarin, they encourage to have external examiner from other university, not other country.
Yeah, not other country.
Why it is happening? Because our document still in Indonesia.
Yeah.
Will be very was not possible to send our document to other people, to other country. Otherwise, they should write in English. Then we can choose them. I believe in the future. In the future, if we write this in English, then we can choose external examiner. In Malaysia as well, I am always asked to be one of the panel member.
Panel member.
After correction, feedback from external examiner, they have 5 afuk. In Malaysia, they have DVEN. They have 5 afuks. Yeah, oral exam.
Yes.
Yeah, oral exam.
Final.
Yeah.
Defense.
So, do you have a final oral exam?
Yeah, we have. In
Yeah.
fact, the thesis of in our university will go to 2 people, one from Indian institution and one from the other country.
Yeah.
After we receive both the reports, the Indian examiner will be the chairperson of Vivaverse.
5 afuk.
That is final defense.
5 afuk namanya, FIFA.
FIFA.
Itu oral exam. Yeah.
Oral exam.
That is the practice of Sastra University.
Yeah,
So he has to address the problems or the queries given by external examiner and also the internal examiner, and he has to produce the answers or responses to all these questions raised by both the examiner, and he has to present his entire work in front of the forum. And forum also may ask any question. It is open to the forum and internal examiner, and sometimes external examiner also may join in the
Final defense.
So he has to address all these queries, and on successful addressing, he will be conferred a doctoral degree. This is the practice which we have in our university, Sastra University.
How many the examiner?
External examiner.
Yeah, external or internal maybe? How many?
One external.
Oh, just one.
No, for 5 afuk. How many?
What?
5 afuks, how many examiner are there?
5, I don't understand.
5 afuk defense, oral exam. For the oral exam.
The final.
For oral exam,
how many examiner?
The internal examiner is the chairperson. Our Dean
Chairperson.
Research is the
Dean
chairperson.
researcher, yes.
Internal examiner, that is examiner from India, will be there.
Oh.
The supervisor and assistant, that is associate dean research also.
Oh,
Atmos 5,
associate.
Atmos 5. Yeah, almost similar.
Similar.
The different thing that we do not have external exam. For I mean external from other countries. Only external from other universities.
Ya. Baik, mungkin ini pernyataan terakhir gitu ya Prof ya, untuk mengakhiri podcast kita hari ini. Mungkin ada tips dan trik gitu ya Prof ya, agar kita sebagai dosen itu bisa tetap konsisten gitu ya menerapkan model atau membawa riset gitu ya di dalam kelas. Nah mungkin ada tips dan triknya Prof.
Satu trik, dan itu saya lakukan sudah puluhan tahun sejak saya tahun 92 jadi dosen. Saya sudah 32 tahun jadi dosen. Dosen itu harus spesialis betul dalam pikirannya, dalam ucapannya, kemudian dalam hal-hal yang dilakukan kesehariannya. Artinya apa? Kalau dia melakukan riset di bidang A, mengajar juga bidang A, meneliti bidang A, mengajar bidang A, mengabdikannya juga bidang A. Baru dia akan mampu melakukan aktivitas yang kita bicarakan sekarang ini, yaitu research based learning. Itu yang pertama. Yang kedua, lakukanlah secara istiqomah. Ini penting.
Ini yang berat ini ya Prof ya.
Paling berat.
Paling berat.
Kalau sudah istiqomah, insya Allah dalam konteks apapun tidak akan ada kekhawatiran dan tidak ada juga perasaan sedih. Akan datanglah sebuah kesuksesan. Kadang kita gagal, tapi bagi orang yang mudah menyerah, nah itulah akhirnya terjadi sesuatu yang frustrated, artinya frustrating yang memberikan sebuah rasa frustasi. Tapi bagi mereka yang terus berjuang, kadang gagal, dan dia suatu saat akan mendapatkan sebuah kesuksesan. Maka lakukan sedikit demi sedikit. Ada pepatah, insya Allah akan menjadi bukit. Dan lakukan sesuatu, baru dari sesuatu itulah kita akan terinspirasi sebuah ide. Jadi jangan menunggu ide dulu baru melakukan sesuatu, tapi harus langsung melakukan, baru dari itu kita mencoba, pasti akan ketemu ide. Dan jangan takut kepada tantangan, karena tantangan itu adalah sesuatu yang memang harus kita jalani, kita terobos, karena memang hidup ini ya penuh tantangan. Maka saya kira kita harus menjadi tough person, seorang yang persisten, seorang yang gigih, yang juga memiliki determined to do something, ya, gigih untuk melakukan sesuatu. Insya Allah akan menjadi sukses. Karena saya sudah istilahnya senior,
makan asam garam.
Saya berhak untuk berbicara seperti itu karena sudah mengalami pahit dan manisnya kehidupan. Terima kasih, Tapi thank you very much, Doctor. It's very appreciate.
Yeah.
We have you to be here joining with our discussion, and thank you very much again. Yeah,
thank you very much for giving this opportunity by Universitas Jember, and I must thank my university also for providing me this opportunity by selecting me as a G20 chapter officer. So thank you all. Thank you.
Baik, terima kasih Prof. David dan juga terima kasih kepada Dr. Swaminathan yang telah hadir di tengah-tengah kita. Tadi pembahasannya sangat menarik terkait dengan riset based learning gitu ya. Semoga pembahasan kita hari ini bisa memberikan inspirasi dan wawasan baru bagi para pendengar. Mari kita terus tingkatkan IKU ke-7 Universitas dengan mewujudkan kelas yang kolaboratif dan partisipatif serta melibatkan mahasiswa dan merangsang keterlibatan mereka dalam proses belajar di kelas. Salah satunya dengan mengimplementasikan model RBL di dalam kelas. Saya akhiri dengan pantun, naik kereta bersama Nyonya. Mohon maaf apabila ada salah kata. Sampai berjumpa di podcast berikutnya. Jangan lupa tinggalkan like, komen, dan subscribe Cek Podcast LPMPP, berita, wawasan, dan edukasi. Saya akhiri. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.